allow me
Yes,
to share the screen? Yep.
for sure. So maybe you can ask permission
Yep.
and then I can give you, there
Mhm.
we go. You can share your screen. Hi, everyone. We're just waiting a few seconds to let everyone in. Welcome. Elizabeth is going to share her screen. Wonderful. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining today. You are at the Devant hosted live immigration Q&A, what you need to know about staying as an international student. I'm so excited here to facilitate this with our very own Elizabeth Long, who's been a long-standing partner with Devant and has been here for students. I'll introduce her in a few minutes. My name is Sisha Maharaj. I'm a senior consultant with Devant, along with my great team. Maybe next slide, Elizabeth, if you can. And Devant has been offering these sessions for free every Wednesday from 7 to 8. Still on the original slide there, Elizabeth.
Mhm.
And just as a matter of logistics, just to let everyone know, you are muted and your video is off, but please do use the Q&A for any questions to Elizabeth, and we'll get to those at the end. She has some very important information to share with you today. So I'm not seeing it being advanced. Have you advanced it by chance?
I did. Uh,
Okay.
are you seeing advanced right now?
No, it's
Okay,
still showing as the original slide, so maybe we can try
oh,
one
you know
more
what?
time.
Maybe I am needing to. I'm sorry. Hold on for one
Okay.
second here. Are you seeing it advanced
Yes,
now?
perfect.
This one?
Yes, now it is. Yes, perfect. So
Okay.
if we
All
can
right.
go back to the previous slide, please, for a second. Great. So that's me and the team. The Devant team is here to support you, and we are helping to, connect you with employers, helping to deliver workshops that are important to you as an international student and for newcomers to Canada. Next slide. I talked a little bit about this already, but there is the Q&A button. In terms of the support that we offer as well, please take a look at our website for all upcoming events for September. Next slide. So as I mentioned, we provide, not only free actionable advice to, you with experts like career coaches, immigration experts like Elizabeth, industry experts at our live events. We also offer the latest AI-driven tools to help you with your resume, help you prep for interviews, and help you understand the latest labor market information. We also help to connect you to partners to help you overall in your success here in Canada. So make sure you visit devant.ca to learn more. Important notice, this information does not constitute legal advice. Please refer to Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada for the most up-to-date information and consult a registered immigration professional for personalized advice. But today we are so thrilled to have Elizabeth Long with us. She is a certified specialist, a leading immigration lawyer in Canada. She's an active advocate of immigrant and refugee rights and frequently presents and advises on immigration issues to organizations, universities, members of parliament, unions, and the media. She has also testified several times before the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Citizenship and Immigration on various immigration policies. Elizabeth holds a Juris Doctor Law degree from the University of Toronto. And I'm not sure if you saw Elizabeth, but there was a huge announcement today of a very big donation to the U of T Law School, which is very exciting news for
Yes, for sure.
upcoming students who are pursuing law at U of T. And she also has a Bachelor of Arts degree with the honors in psychology from Memorial University in Newfoundland. She also holds a Master of Law degree from Osgoode Hall Law School, York University, where she focused on the intersection between immigration, labor, and employment law for foreign workers. Elizabeth has also been certified by the Law Society of Ontario as a specialist in citizenship and immigration law, a prestigious list of which only 65 lawyers in Canada belong to. So as you can see, you have an expert here, a great opportunity to ask your questions. Elizabeth, again, welcome to our live Q&A. The floor is yours for this important topic. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you so much for having me here, Sisha. It's always great to be here. And, September, it's such an exciting time. You guys are starting school, and every time I go to the campus, I get goosebumps myself because it's just so nice to have a time to learn and start that experience. Now, today we are going to be talking about some really important things that you must know as international students when you are studying. Because, I hate seeing clients when they come to my office after finishing their studies, and they're so excited to go on to the next chapter of their lives and start working, and all of a sudden they realize, oh, they might not qualify for a post-grad work permit, or they might have done something, and they might have lost their status, and they might not have been able to get permanent residence. So today what we're going to do is we're going to go over some of the most basic rules that you must know when you are an international student, and also what you need to do in order to prepare yourself to apply for your postgrad work permit. We do these sessions every month with Devant, and we have all sorts of topics talking about different ways to get permanent residence and other kinds of topics. But today, because it's September, because it's of the start of the new year, we're going to talk about what you need to know when you're studying. Okay, so first of all, studying and working on your study permit. So you have your study permit, and maybe if you have it close to you or a copy close to you, take a look at it. Okay, your study permit is going to show a few things on it. One of the things is the end date on your study permit. But just because that end date is of a certain time, a year, 2 years, 4 years, maybe, it doesn't mean that you wouldn't lose your status in Canada before that date. Okay, one of the things that you must know is that as international students, you could lose your student status if you are not what's called actively pursuing your studies. You will lose it after 90 days after you stop actively pursuing your studies. What is actively pursuing your studies? It means you're registered as a student with the school. It means you're attending classes, and you're going to do your exams, etc. If you stop then and you drop out, then you're not actively pursuing your studies, you lose your status after 90 days. There are two exceptions to the rule. One is the scheduled breaks. Those are breaks that are on the academic calendar of your school. Okay. And so if everybody else in your program gets those breaks, then that's a scheduled break and you get those breaks, and that's still counted as actively studying, even though you're on your study scheduled break. The other one is a more personalized situation. Let's say you experience some sort of um, health issue in your life, or something happens with your family, maybe it's a financial issue, etc. And you are just not able to continue on for that one semester. What you should do is go to your school, explain your situation, and ask the school to give you the authorized leave for that semester. A school is able to give a student authorized leave for 150 days. And you should be doing this before you take the time off, okay? The best practice is to do that. Sometimes, if you ask afterwards, the school might be willing to give it to you, but they don't have to. You should be asking it before you want to take the leave. And the school has to decide that, yes, they are willing to give you authorized leave. Make sure you have it in writing that the school has given you authorized leave for that semester. And if so, then that would also mean that you're still actively pursuing your studies and you would not lose your status after 90 days. Now, after that one semester, if you stop studying, and you don't return to school, then the 90 days will start counting. one of the things you have to understand is that the co-op work permit, some of you guys may have co-op programs, right? And you have to work because of, and you have to be working because of your education program. So if you don't already have a co-op work permit for this, go ahead and apply right away for that co-op work permit. Okay, sometimes the officers forget to give it to you together with your study program. Okay, so the co-op work permit, it only allows you to work in the co-op programs full time. So sometimes I have employers asking me, hey, we still want to employ this person, and they have a work permit, so can they work for me? And this work is not part of the school's requirement to complete your program. The co-op work permit would not apply to that. Co-op work permit is only for your co-op program. Working while you're studying. You can work out without holding another kind of work permit based on your student status. First of all, only if you are a full-time student. Except the last semester, you can be a part-time student. But other than that, you can only work while you're a full-time student. So that means if you are on authorized leave, you cannot work at all because you're not a full-time student. If you're on scheduled breaks, you are a full-time student, you can work full-time on scheduled breaks. So there's no limit to how much time you can work off campus. You can work 24 hours off campus when you are in classes. You can work full-time on campus as well. You can actually work full-time on campus and the 24 hours off campus while you're studying. Don't know how you're going to get any studying done, but technically it is allowed. Okay. Once you've completed your studies and you're no longer a student, you have to stop working at that time. Okay. So once you receive the first notice that you have completed your studies from the school, that's when you have to stop working. You can start working again, and we'll talk about this once you've applied for your post-grad work permit, provided that you meet certain conditions. Okay. The exception to not being able to work when you've completed your studies is if you've completed one program and you've been accepted to a second program, and there is only one semester in between the two programs, you are allowed to work that semester in between the two programs. So you have to have completed a program and have been accepted to the second program. In that situation, you can work in between the two programs. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about extending your status. Sometimes your study permit may not be valid for the entire length of your study program. Sometimes it may end maybe just a few days before your program is set to end or the grades are out. In that situation, you should apply to extend your study permit. Extend it earlier rather than later. Okay, normally the officer is supposed to issue a study permit that expires 90 days after your program is set to end. Okay, because they're supposed to give you time to apply for your post-grad work permit. This is really important because, and we'll talk about this later, but first of all, you want to keep your status. You want to make sure that you are never without status. If you're without status, if your study permit has expired and you have not applied to extend your status before it expires, then you would be studying without authorization, which means that there's going to be an issue with you getting another study permit. B, the school probably will kick you out of the program because they're not allowed for you to study without authorization. And it would probably have an issue with you obtaining a work permit later on, etc., etc. Okay? So first of all, file the extension at least before your study permit or later on your work permit expires. Very, very important. Okay. If you do, you have the right to continue to study or to work in case of a work permit until a decision is made. Now, that is true unless you leave Canada after your your first study permit has expired and before your new study permit is issued. If you leave Canada, even if you have a visitor's visa or you don't need a visa to re-enter Canada, you lose your implied status. You are not allowed to study or work until your new study permit or work permit is issued. Okay, so if you're in between that time, try very hard not to leave so that you can continue on with your studies or continue to work while waiting for the decision to be made. Because oftentimes right now, the decisions are taking several months to be processed in Canada. If you, for some reason, forget to file the extension before your current status ends, or maybe you did something wrong and your application was denied, you do have 90 days from the time that you've lost your status. So if you forget and you didn't file an extension before your study permit has expired, then you have 90 days from the date of expiry to file what's called a restoration of status. You have to pay an extra fee for the restoration. You can apply for the study permit while you're in Canada. In this situation, you don't need to leave Canada while waiting for the restoration to be issued. However, do you have status at that time? No, you do not. While you are waiting for the restoration of your status, you cannot study or work until the new study permit is issued. Okay? So, if you have your study permit in front of you, or if you can find your study permit, the first thing you should do, go and put that date on your calendar. Make sure you set many, many reminders about that date. Okay? By the way, if you have filed an extension on time, but somehow it's rejected, the date that the 90 days start counting is the date of the rejection. If your application was returned because somehow you didn't submit a proper form or a fee or it wasn't properly submitted and it's returned, not rejected, then the date of the restoration starts from the date that your study permit actually expired. Okay. All right. Applying for study. By the way, if you guys have any further questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A and we'll start answering them after in a few minutes, okay? All right, so applying for study permit extensions. Now, it used to be pretty simple. You say, you're still studying, and then you file the extension only if your study permit is going to expire. But in the last year or so, the government has provided a lot more rules around when someone needs a new study permit. Okay, so first of all, if you are changing your DLI, what's a DLI? It's the designated learning institution. If you're changing your school, you will need to apply for a new study permit before you can actually start. Okay, there's a few exceptions to the rule. If your DLI or your program was suspended or the program closed or the DLI lost the designation. That's the exceptions. Otherwise, you have to get a new study permit before you can attend the new school. If you're staying in the same school, you don't need to get a new study permit unless your study permit is going to expire. But if you're going to change to a new school, then before you start the new school, even if your current study permit is still valid, you will need to change your study permit. PALS. Okay. Um, if you're going to be applying to a new DLI, you'll need that new Pell from the school. If you are going to the same school and you need to extend that study permit, if the new program is in a different level, let's say you're going from a bachelor's and you're going to go on to a master's, to get that new study permit, even if it's in the same school, you're going to have to get a new Pell. If it's in the same, like, it's diploma, certificate, undergrad, etc., then normally that's considered the same level and you don't need a new Pell in order to apply for a new study permit. Okay. I've included some of the exceptions and exemptions in this slides. We're going to be sending out slides to everyone who has registered for this program. So by the way, we always send out slides for people who register, not attend, register for our Devant seminars. So even if you can't attend and you feel like, hey, you know what, this might be of interest, feel free to register and we'll still send you the slides and you can watch the recordings afterwards. Okay, field of study. So this has to do for the post-grad work permits. So prior to last year, November 1st, if you had a study permit, it could be any program from a public university and college that would qualify for a post-grad work permit. Now, if you apply for a study permit after the November 1st for a new program, that program will need to meet field of study requirements if it's not at a bachelor's, master's, or PhD. Okay? So it's not a degree program. You're going to need to meet the field of study. For some people, if you're going, the first program might have been before November 1st, but you're going to do a second program, be very careful because you're going to probably need to meet the field of study requirements if it's not a degree program. All right. Let's talk about the final thing. Well, actually, I have one more thing after this, but let's talk about one of the very important things that you guys need to know, which is the post-grad work permit. The post-grad work permit is like a golden ticket for the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Okay, you say, well, everybody gets a post-grad work. No, only those people who are lucky enough to be an international student in Canada in a program that qualifies for the post-grad work permit. Okay, so first of all, you can only get one golden ticket in your life. Okay, and so be very careful because some people, they get a post-grad work permit and they waste their time. Some people get a post-grad work permit and it's for a very short period of time and they don't have enough time afterwards to get the work experience or job offer that they need in order to get permanent residence. Okay, so non-master's programs, non-master's PhD, it's a long time, you'll get 3-year work permit anyway. Master's program, 1 year, you get a 3-year work permit. But a non-master's program, it coincides with the length of your program. So if it's a 1-year program, you get a 1-year post-grad work permit only. Now, if you do a 1+1, then you can get a 3-year work permit. Okay? 2-year program, get a 3-year work permit. So oftentimes you may be so happy, finally I graduated from this 1-year program. I'm done. I don't want to study anymore. I want to get permanent residence. Well, before you go and apply for the post-grad work permit, come and talk to us. We need to, if your permanent residence, your final goal, you need to make sure that you can actually get there, right? Sometimes you have people who, you want to do a master's right after your bachelor's. Well, in that case, you may not want to apply for the post-grad work permit after your bachelor's, even though you can. You want to make sure that you don't waste any time on your post-grad work permit. Okay, so um, the field of study, we talked about field of study for extending, and this is where it comes in, right? So for non-degree programs, if you have applied for a study permit after November 1st, it needs to meet the field of study in order to qualify for the post-grad work permit. Distance education. Distance education, where it's online, it needs to be less than 50% of your program. IRCC wants to make sure that you attend your classes on a personal basis, face-to-face, personal basis, in order to qualify for the post-grad work permit. Very importantly, you must maintain full-time status in every single semester except the last semester. Okay, full-time status. Sometimes I have people coming to me and they say, well, Elizabeth, I am just so stressed this semester. I'm failing a lot of my classes, or I'm getting very bad grades, and I'm going to get really bad grades in a lot of my classes. I want to keep my transcript clean and nice for employers afterwards. I want to drop out of a few classes, okay? I said, listen, I would rather see that you have an F on your courses than to see that you've dropped out of courses. Because if you drop out and you're at the part-time student, you're not going to be eligible for the post-grad work permit at the end. And if that's the situation, you're going to have to do another program. Are you willing to do another program? Right? Sometimes, for example, someone may have failed a course and then they need to do that one course. They only need to do that one course for that. Sometimes you may want to take on some electives to make sure that you're a full-time student throughout. Okay. Sometimes, you're experiencing some difficulties, maybe health-wise. I would say take that entire semester off instead of, and get an authorized leave. Everybody's situation is different, but sometimes it might be better to take that entire semester off, come back fresh afterwards. No matter what it is, if you don't have full-time status, except in the last semester, that will be a big issue for your post-grad work permit at the end. Okay, now, very importantly, when can you work full-time when you've completed your program? Okay, my advice to you, and on the IRCC website, it'll say you can apply for your post-grad work permit within 180 days after you've graduated. Technically, that's true, but it's not advisable, okay? And that is because if you apply after 90 days, you won't have student status, you won't be able to work after the 90 days, and you'll have to file restoration of status to get your student status back. So anyway, don't go there, don't go there. Keep this rule in mind. Apply for your post-grad work permit the earlier of when your study permit expires, or within 90 days of the completion, when you first receive the notice from the school that you've completed your program. Study permit, if your study permit expires before the 90 days, the deadline is your study permit. If your study permit expires after the 90 days, the deadline is the 90 days. Okay? If you do that, then you can work as soon as you've applied for your post-grad work permit. Okay, so let's walk through a timeline for the working at the end of your program, okay? Because this can get a little bit confusing sometimes. Let's say you're writing your final exams, okay? So you're enrolled student at that time, you can work part-time off campus. Let's say you're waiting for your results. Have you finished your program? No, you haven't. Nobody has told you you finished your program. So at that period of time, you can work. Now, the school has notified you. Congratulations, you've completed your program. Are you a student at that time? No, you are not. I don't care if you haven't received your degree or your diploma, you haven't, worn your cap and gown. I don't care. The school notified you. That's what IRCC is going by. Okay. School notified you that you've completed your program. You have to stop working at that point. No working part-time, no working full-time, stop. You can start again if you submit your post-grad work permit application when? Within 90 days of the completion of your program and while your study permit is still valid. This is why if your study permit is going to expire before your current program ends, you must apply for your study permit early. And because you can't start working without a valid study permit. You're technically not supposed to start working when you are on implied status. You're supposed to hold that study permit in your hand. Okay? If that is the situation, you can start working full time. We do a lot of YouTube videos and social media. One of the last ones I've done is on for employers, telling them how to know when someone can work, when an international student can work while waiting for the work permit to be issued. So, I'm happy to, you can, go on I'll share our social media and you can forward those videos if you want to potential employers when the time comes. Okay. All right. Final thing I wanted to talk to you about for those people who might have spouses. Okay. The IRCC has really changed the rules for spouses as well. So the spousal work permits for spouses of students, only those people who now are master students, PhD, or select professional programs, their spouses are able to get the postgrad, the open spousal work permit. When you are a worker, when you are applying for your postgrad work permit, in order for your spouse to get their work permit, it really depends on the job offer that you have. Okay. Plus, the work permits have to be valid for at least 16 months when the application is made, which is another issue with those people who only do a 1-year program. You only get a 1-year work permit. Your spouse will not be able to get the open spousal work permit. The exception is for those who have applied for permanent residence. Not just put your name in the pool, been invited to apply, have applied for permanent residence, and you are eligible for a bridging work permit. That's for another time to discuss. We've had different kinds of webinars before, and we'll certainly discuss that again some other time. Okay, but for those who have spouses, keep that in mind. Job offers when you complete your program is very important if you want your spouse to have an open spousal work permit. So for people who already have spouses who have open spousal work permits, they can apply to the end of your study permit or to the end of your existing work permit. But once that is done, the new applications normally fall under the new applicant rules. All right, so next steps. What should you do? This is a lot of information, I know. Okay. First of all, speak with a qualified lawyer early on regarding your options. Don't wait until, maybe you think you've qualified. Maybe I like to speak to people even before they start their programs. My favorite kind of situation is when someone comes to me and say, oh, you know what? I was thinking about studying in Canada, or I want to come to Canada to immigrate. What's the best ways? And then I can advise them on what kind of programs to do, where they should apply it, etc. But let's say you're in school. I'd still love to talk to you. I like to talk to everybody. But the earlier you come to me, the more prepared you can be with your life. Even if you don't qualify yet, at least you can know what you must do in order to qualify for permanent residence. If you have an employer, it's very important that the employer understands how they can help you with your permanent residence as well, how they can help you with your work permit, etc. Okay. No matter what, we talked about keeping your status. Why is that the first thing I talked to you about? It's because it's super, super important. Okay. And, think about your post-grad work permit, team up with your spouse. Um, there are different strategies that we can talk about. And then plan. I think execution is probably 30%. 70% has to do with planning. And these days, unfortunately, IRCC switches plans very fast. And sometimes you say, well, how do I plan for that? There are certain kinds of assumptions that people who have been in the game for a long time, we can kind of foresee. There's certain things that the government will likely do and maintain. And so there are still ways that you can plan your life to maximize your chances of success. All right, so I've included our contact information, the social media videos they can watch about other aspects for immigration. What we tell you today is true today, but it could very well change afterwards. So for those who have registered, we're going to be putting you in on our list where we update you on immigration news as well. Okay. Now, if you want to schedule a personal consultation, um, email us and tell us that you've come from Devant because we offer those who are Devant students a special discount. It's only $100 for the consultation. All right. Okay. So, Sisha, let's start. Shall we start with the Q&As?
Wow, that was incredible. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Every time you present, I always learn something new. I think very important information, especially for students to know there's one golden ticket, but at the same time, how to stay in status. Also, I think it's also very important information that you shared around if they're having challenges academically and what it means if you drop a course and come out of full-time status versus part-time status. So again, thank you so much. I do see some questions here for you. Please put your questions in the Q&A for Elizabeth. I will go through them. Also, you can vote on the questions and I will ask those ones first. So I think you've covered some of these as well, but maybe students just need reinforcing of some of the information. So does actively pursuing studies include the co-op semester where you couldn't land a co-op? My college confirmed I was a registered full-time student that semester. That's a very good question.
That's a very good question. And it just goes to show that oftentimes there are nuances that just, have for specific situations that you can't really cover everything. This is a very important question. Here's the thing. The officer, when you apply for postgrad work permit, looks at your transcript. All right.
Hmm.
Even if your school says you're a full-time student and on your transfer there's a big fat nothing on that semester, the officer could very well have a question and could reject your application. What I would suggest you do is take a look at your transcript, see if you're registered as a full-time student, but also you may want to get an authorized leave letter from the college saying that you had authorized leave for that semester. All right. That's a special circumstance that you couldn't help. The college should give you authorized leave for that semester, and hopefully you would have gotten a co-op placement the second semester and gotten a grade for that. Because if you didn't get a grade on your transcript, that could very well seem like you weren't a student that semester. We don't really want officers to see that. Okay.
So just as a follow-up to that, if they were in co-op
Mm-hmm.
during that semester, what would it, I'm just wondering, they wouldn't have had a grade per se, but they would have had a different indication,
Yeah,
maybe.
like a pass or something to indicate that they're in co-op. I usually the transcripts should show that they're in a co-op program. Um,
Mhm.
right? Yeah,
Yeah,
it
so
doesn't
that's
equal, but something should be there.
something should be there. Yeah. So if you didn't get a co-op, something to talk to your school about. And if you had a previous co-op, take a look at your transcript and see what did it say when you were on co-op. The other thing is for those of you who were supposed to get a co-op but didn't get a co-op, maybe there's an opportunity for you to get a work integrated learning assignment that could be signed off by your co-op office. I know, in my previous role, I worked in a co-op office, and for those students, for example, who didn't get a co-op, they started their own company. They got a mentorship, they did research, they did something during that term to get experience where they could apply what they learned in their co-op program. So please don't wait. Talk to your co-op office. This is a very, very good question. I know it's really difficult to secure employment right now, especially for students who are newcomers or international students. So definitely speak to your office, see how they can assist you and what alternate options you have to get that experience where they might be able to qualify that as an experience for you. So thanks for that question. Next question. Let me just go through. Oh, they're coming in fast and furious here. Bear with me.
Oh, sure.
Okay. Uh,
Mhm.
Okay, so I applied for my post-grad work permit in March, but it's not received yet given the long wait times. Employers usually don't understand IRCC literature stating full-time work on implied status. I also have friends in a similar situation. If I do lose implied status, I'm using for my job search currently. My work permit extension letter that employers want to see expires soon. What do I do?
Right. So, and I think we covered this in a previous episode, I feel like I'm on TV in this
The
webinar.
Devant immigration
Um,
series.
but we also I did a YouTube video because I love and hate the WPEXT letter. It's very, very confusing.
Hmm.
You do not lose your status because of that random date that the system generates, okay? You have implied status because of the regulations. And the regulations say that you have the ability to work, you have work permit status until a decision is made on your application. All right. So it's hard for employers to understand this. I have a link on the my previous slides for the previous one. I think it's recorded, right? And also check out our YouTube. We just posted a whole explanation for employers on this.
Okay.
So if you're, in your current job, that might be something you can send to your current employers. For those who are trying to apply for a new job, sometimes employers, you don't get that chance, that opportunity to speak to the employers.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because they canceled flag polling, where you can just go to the border to get the work permits, unfortunately, yes, the work permits are just taking so long. Hopefully, it's normally around 6 months. Hopefully, you'll get your work permit soon.
Hmm. So thank you very much for that question. It is a very difficult scenario that you're in. I do also want to encourage you to follow up with Elizabeth for a one-on-one consultation. As I mentioned, or she mentioned that you do have a discount as being part of the Devant community. I have another interesting question here. A student in a nutshell is part of a full-time aquatics, working as a full-time aquatics programmer with the city of Fort St. John. Curious if this role qualifies under any specific knock or tier code, exploring pathways for PR.
So yeah, so come for a consultation. We do have a discounted rate. It's $100 plus tax for you. If you tell me you come from Devant, okay?
Mhm.
We'll sit down, we'll go over. If you're in Newfoundland, Newfoundland actually has a pretty good provincial nominee program, and we can talk about this. For me, just as a title means very little to me because it's not about what you're called, it's about what you do. And I have to know all these other circumstances about your case. So do come for a consultation and we can map out a plan for you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. And I do want to mention, I see another question around like financial supports. I would encourage you to talk to your school as well, see if they have any supports available. There are, options where you could apply as well. So for the student who asked that question, please feel free to reach out to me and I can share with you some resources. Um, Okay, so a question here. We've had this question before, actually. Is it an issue if I declare to be working remotely for a company outside of Canada when I apply for a postgrad work permit?
Right. It's a really good question. I unfortunately I can't cover all situations, but one of the things that I was thinking that I should mention to you, I'm glad you asked this question, is what happens if you're working outside for an employer that's outside of the country? That is actually allowed on as long as as long as you're legally in Canada, you don't need a work permit or any sort of authorization if you're working for an employer outside of Canada that has nothing to do with Canada. Because the whole thing about needing authorization to work in Canada is for work that competes with the labor market in Canada. So if you're working for an employer outside of Canada, that's perfectly fine anytime because you don't need authorization from the Canadian government. Canadian government doesn't really care if you're working from outside of the country. Now, certainly you should declare that work on your forms. On your forms, when you're applying, it asks you to complete your entire employment history. Make
Mm-hmm.
sure that you are putting in your entire employment history because if you don't, that can come back and bite you really, really hard. Okay. That later on, if you want to talk about your work experience, whether or not it's for permanent residence, whether or not it's for another kind of work permit, etc., if you don't declare it on your forms, the officer can say, well, were you lying then or are you lying now? Okay, so make sure that on your forms, everything is complete, everything is accurate.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you so much, Elizabeth. Just wanted to mention, I see some questions going on in the chat. Please use the Q&A so I don't miss your questions. I'm following the Q&A to keep in order and making sure I don't miss anything. So please pop your questions in the Q&A and I will be sure to ask them to Elizabeth.
Within 13 minutes, we
The
have
13
13
minutes.
minutes.
Okay, let's try to go
First
quickly
come,
here.
first serve.
Okay. How long does it
Yeah.
take for status restoration?
So you have 90 days to apply, and then the processing time, normally it falls within the same kind of processing time as regular work permits or study permits. Sometimes it might take a little bit longer. You don't really ever want to get into that sort of situation. You want to be on implied status as long as possible. Sometimes it can't be helped. But yeah, it's unfortunately can be a very long wait. Right now, work permits take 6 months. Study
Hmm.
permits can
Wow.
take a long time too. Yeah.
Wow. How about if someone needs to leave for a medical reason, and that time they do work outside of campus? Will they be eligible to extend a study permit and later the post-grad work permit?
So authorized leave means that you're not a student. If you do work on campus or off campus in Canada while you're on authorized leave, it's actually unauthorized work.
Mm,
So an officer who finds that you have worked without authorization is prevented from issuing you a work permit within
mm,
6 months of your unauthorized work. So don't do that. Don't, take that risk and say, hey, I need some finances. I need to work off campus and take the authorized leave and then work because that can also come back and bite you really hard.
mhm. Again, I encourage you to speak with your financial services aid office, your career center to see how they can assist you. Next question. Can you work with a co-op in Canada like a job that's not related to the school?
Can you work with a co-op in Canada, like a job that's not related? Well, you can, but the co-op work permit doesn't allow you to do that. So don't think that, oh, I have a co-op work permit that allows me to work full time. So I'm going to work for any job that says it's a co-op. No, just because a job says it's a co-op does not mean that the co-op work permit allows you to work. The co-op work permit allows you to work in a position that's part of your program. That's it. Otherwise, you have to be authorized to work maybe the 24 hours off campus that you have under the study permit.
Okay, thank you. Is there a pathway for a spouse who's on a visitor visa to apply for a work permit, for example, a valid job offer?
It depends on the spouse.
Okay,
So we'll come for a consult and we'll
come for a
determine then.
consult.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I've got some PhD questions here. Completed a PhD, got a post-grad work permit 1 year, 2 months due to the passport expiry. Can I apply online or paper to get the full 3 year post-grad work permit? And do I need to give English test for the extended post-grad work permit?
You can apply to extend your post-grad work permit.
Mm-hmm.
Do you need to provide a new English exam? I would say normally not, although is it a good idea to do it? Probably. Um, it's hard to say because it's not something that really I've heard that the IRCC has provided instructions on. By the way, you can apply for those online, even though it says by paper, but you can actually do it online.
Mm-hmm.
But English exam, best thing to do would be to have a valid English exam and show that you qualify. Technically speaking, you've already shown that you qualified before, so can you get away with it? Maybe. But do you want to rest on a maybe? If you can do it, just probably best that you still qualify for it.
Yes, I just want to mention that there will be a recording of this sent out to everybody who has attended this event. I'm going to go to this question here. What are the options after finishing my postgrad work permit to stay in Canada? That's a whole other webinar that Elizabeth has offered. We do have available topics, so feel free to reach out and we can give that to you. But Elizabeth has had pathways, to PR, pathways after postgrad work permit, and we actually did that some coverage in our last webinar last month on that. So Elizabeth, did you want to add anything different for that question? Because that's a big one.
That's a big one, and I would say, you can watch all the webinars you want, you can find all the webinars you want on the internet. But if you really want to know for yourself what you need to do, come for a consult so they can go over everything. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So feel free to book some time with Elizabeth. Mention that you were here. It's only $100 as a discount for Devant community to have an initial consult. Is definitely worth it to meet with Elizabeth. Question, can I work full time between my first and second program? So did an undergrad, maybe doing a postgrad.
Yes, you can. Remember what I said? You have to have completed your first program and have been accepted to the second program before you can start working that in-between semester.
Mm-hmm. How do we book consultations with you is a question.
Email us. There is your email. Inquiries at LM, not IM, lmlawgroup.com.
Perfect. Thank you. Question. I'm in the PR process, finished my medical and biometric and waiting on the PAL and background check. What are the chances to get PR with the master's stream OINP? Do we
Come
have
for a
any
consult.
data?
Yeah,
Come
come
for
for
a
a consult.
consult.
Yeah.
Come for a consult. Can I study 4 months program with a postgrad work permit?
Very good question. So you can study in a program of under 6 months without a study permit. Okay. Now, if you are a full-time student at the time that you are getting your work experience, that could disqualify you from using your work experience for express entry points. So one thing that you might want to do is first come for a consult so we can take a look at your circumstances and see whether or not that's something that you want to do. But technically speaking, you can study uh, without a study permit. if your program is under 6 months in Canada, you can study distance education. Like if your program is fully online, you don't need a study permit either for that.
Great. So I have someone asking if we provide employment support as well. So just a reminder, I know we're running out of time. Please give us your feedback. Maybe we can go to the next slide for our events, Elizabeth.
Sure.
So we offer support at Devant. We have these weekly events, 7 to 8 every Wednesday for free. We are going to be launching some new services. You'll hear about it shortly in November. But in addition to that, next week we're going to have Ask a Recruiter event from invisible to invincible, specifically how to market yourself when jobs are scarce. So please come back for that event next week, Wednesday. After that, we've got boosting your job search effectively using AI in your job search. So at Devant, we provide support through education, through the AI tools with your resume, your cover letter, interview prep, and these events. We're also partnering with employers, as you can see. And then we're also partnering with cities. We're going city by city. In November, we're going to be working with the City of London, the Economic Development Centre of London. So you'll get more information on that. We're bringing employers to do speed interviews with the community at large. So, we are doing multiple different things to support you in your job search. We know that it's tough out there, and that's why Devon is here to help bridge the gap between your academic studies and your employment success. So, for sure, this is what Devant is good at and why we exist and how we're supporting you. You are not alone. You also have your career centers, you have your PSC partners as well as a non for profit community. So please leverage all the resources. Don't wait till the last minute. Reach out and get help. So happy to see all of you here today. I know we couldn't get through all of the questions, but you did ask some really great questions. This will be available after for those of you who were here. Thank you so much for joining, and please join me. I see all 5 stars here for you, Elizabeth, and really looking forward to you guys' feedback on what are the immigration topics you'd like to hear from Elizabeth next. So please join me in thanking Elizabeth for her time today. We wish you all the best. We are here. Feel free to reach out to us. And maybe we can put your card up there one more time, Elizabeth. Just reach out to Elizabeth if you've got questions. You will get her newsletter. You will get information that is timely from Elizabeth and her team. They are fantastic, and she's here every month. So really cares about international students and newcomers, and she's been doing this for a long time. So again, thank you everyone for joining. I hope this was helpful. Elizabeth, thank you so much for all that you do for the community, and thank you for partnering with Devant, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here. As Sisha has said, it is tough out there. We know, and you're doing the right first steps. You are attending Devant seminars. You're getting to understand your immigration. We know it's tough out there, but you know what? You've made the first step. You're here as international students. That is something that most people in the world won't do. And you certainly have the tenacity, you have the courage to do it. So, all the best, you guys, and we're here for you for the rest of your journey. Take care.
Bye, everyone. Bye, Elizabeth.